Canada's special rapporteur on foreign election interference is set to announce whether the government should call a public inquiry into the matter.
CTV's Parliament Hill correspondent Kevin Gallagher joining us live this morning in Ottawa. And Kevin, perhaps you can expand on what David Johnston was really tasked with looking at and really what information he had access to before we hear from him at about noon today.
Well, you know, Nick, the big thing that most people are listening for today is whether Special Rapporteur and former Governor General David Johnston will basically recommend if there should be a public inquiry into Chinese interference in Canada's electoral process. This is something that opposition parties have been calling for. They were calling for that even before Prime Minister Justin Trudeau named Johnston to this role. Now, David Johnston was named back in March. He's had access to top secret and classified documents, access to much of the national security infrastructure, whether it's CSIS or other national security bodies and organizations, to sort of see what type of information and what type of activity they're monitoring in terms of Chinese interference in Canada's electoral process, Canada's political system, and also the diaspora communities here in Canada as well. But the public inquiry certainly might be the hottest topic for opposition leaders, but there is a broader mandate here in this initial report we're expecting today. David Johnston was supposed to look at the extent and impact of that foreign interference, what actions the Canadian government did take in 2019 and 2021 to mitigate against these measures. Of course, we do know that there was, a task force put up together of senior bureaucrats that were supposed to monitor whether or not there was any type of foreign interference. And you have to remember too that this was, back in 2019, there was warnings as well from pretty high-level National Security Committee of parliamentarians here in Ottawa as well. And all of this also stems back to the 2016 U.S. election, where there were major allegations of Russian interference in that election. So that fear certainly sparked some of those preliminary safeguards that were put in place. However, there have been other questions since then, namely with some sort of bombshell reports that came from the Globe and Mail and from Global News, citing unnamed sources and national security documents about, questionable dealings that happened behind the scenes, and some real overlooked aspects of the size of this threat. And we've heard as well from former Conservative MPs that say that they were targeted by Chinese misinformation campaigns, namely out in British Columbia with Kenny Chiu, a former Conservative member of Parliament, who is trying to bring forward legislation that would create a foreign registry act that basically would keep track of any foreign agents in Canada who, to track any sort of donations that might be viewed as something that could influence the electoral process. So all of this to say that there will be quite an extensive report we're expecting. However, there has been quite a bit of criticism as well, even from former Conservative leader Aaron O'Toole, who says he has met with David Johnston in a Substack that he posted online, basically saying that he agrees that the election was a legitimate result. The Conservatives lost fair and square. However, he's concerned about the actual oversight, that there was not enough emphasis, he felt, placed on looking into some of the threats that they were facing in terms of his members that he felt were facing from Chinese interference, Nick.
Well, that's a lot to digest. CTV's Parliament Hill correspondent Kevin Gallagher, thanks for breaking it down for us. We'll be holding that news conference again at noon this afternoon.
Thanks, Kevin.